Hey guys, I usually don't do 2 videos in a day, but I started to get into a conversation with one of my subscribers. Onward to Dystopia. Good name, bud. Good name. And I just started to realize I had a lot to say about the subject, and I didn't want to write it all out, and I just kind of wanted to talk about it. And so here I am talking about it. Onward to Dystopia is talking a very, very personal story, airing his very personal concerns about how his friends are asking, how could this happen? And he talks about his own concerns about how he thinks it's too late, that America has jumped off the rails and may have done so decades ago. And that does seem to be the trajectory. I'm not going to lie to you, bud. A civil war is likely. Win or lose, whether Joe Biden wins or loses, whether Donald Trump wins or loses, it seems like the cat is out of the bag at this point. I do think that the final turning point was when that Kyle kid, whose last name I still don't remember, I gotta remember this kid's name because he's so important. When he murdered 2 people in the streets of Kenosha, Wisconsin, and the police congratulated him. And he now has earned rank in the ranks of white supremacists, right? That should he actually end up doing any jail time, he will be treated as a prince within whatever jail system he's in. The white supremacists there will take care of him and they will groom him. But what we're seeing is the full empowerment of white supremacists throughout the United States, right? It began with tiki torches, but now it's becoming plain and clear to anyone with eyes to see and a brain to think that these white supremacists are arming up and have the intention of going to these protests to open fire. That this kid is going to be used as a martyr for the cause, so to speak. And people are going to start saying things like, well, if we had have been there to support our brother in arms, he would have never been arrested. These terrifying white supremacist militia groups will begin roving throughout the United States, going to cities that have protests and beginning to open fire. That's already going to happen. That's outside the political framework at this point. And it seems like the traditional forces that are designed to suppress that kind of behavior, i.e. the police, the CIA, the FBI, right? These organizations that exist supposedly to maintain the peace, will simply step aside and allow that to happen, if not outright participate. So what this will, and I'm not saying this to terrify you or depress you, I'm saying this to give you a realistic path through how this is going to look. From a pretty wide historical lens. Of course, the protesters, who have every reason to protest and should be protesting, many of whom have nothing to lose at this point. They really are in that sort of Marxian position where they have nothing to lose but their chains, right? Many of them have been laid off from their jobs and are going to be evicted from their homes. If not that, then they are just working these absolutely treacherously low-wage jobs in barbaric conditions, which cannot be sustained. They're being thrust into poverty. They know they're being thrust into poverty. They've begun the process of protesting this, of fighting back, and now they are going to realize that if they show up at these protests, they better come with weapons. Many of them are going to take this position. The battle lines are being drawn. There is going to be a fight. That's just real. There is going to be a fight. And in this moment, when America is fighting for its very soul, whether or not it chooses to be outright fascist, or pull itself back towards a slightly capitalist bent, where it at least does not directly enslave its own citizens, even though it directly enslaves everyone else in the world. But even if the election goes to Biden, the Trump supporting, white supremacists are going to go to war. And if Trump wins, then the Marxists and the left-wing people are going to go to war. War is inevitable. You can see it unfold on a daily basis now. The kids that used to be school shooters are now going to take to the streets and air their grievances out there, because that's where people are gathering now. The Civil War lasted 4 years. Expect that. I think that is a rational position to take. And at this stage in the game, let's talk extremely real. If you're an American, Civil War is breaking out in places like Wisconsin. Okay? Major cities like New York are being completely gutted. Major celebrity figures are fleeing to states that have some semblance of control, as the society rends itself asunder. You have to pick a side at this point. And there's no pussyfooting around. There really is not. There's no pussyfooting around. You cannot wait until this comes thundering at your doorstep to begin to prepare. You cannot wait until this is knocking down your doors. You cannot wait until the police are walking down your street firing live ammunition at your homes. You can't wait. You need to organize, you need to prepare, you need to be ready, and you need to do it now. If you have friends who are talking to you about this, you need to take a hold of them, and you need to begin to create plans, and you need to begin to organize for the safety of yourself, your friends, and the community members around you. You don't have an alternative. You truly don't. And there's no guarantee that the white supremacists lose. White supremacy has had periods of victory in our history throughout time. That's where the Bible came from. The New Testament, certainly. The New Testament was a document that was written during a period of high white supremacy, where it was legal for the state to grab hold of citizens and crucify them at their whim. This is not playtime. This is not a time to hold your head down in fear. Okay? It's real time. It's go time. It's now time. Because whether or not this period of terror resolves itself and the American society begins to pick itself back up and rebuild itself in a way that is not so terrifyingly evil. There are major shifts that are coming that we need to be prepared for and we need to be honest about. And they're just going to come, whether we like it or not. And what I am really referring to here is the end of the fossil fuel era. We will not have alternative fuel sources prepared and ready to go. We will not have that. Okay? That's not going to exist. It's a fairy tale and it's a fantasy. We're not going to suddenly have a bunch of solar panels ready to go to make up. We're not going to have wind farms or geothermal, tidal or hydro, nuclear, any of that. If we had started 30, 40 years ago, we could have maybe got halfway there. So one of the things I've been saying a lot recently is, like, when I was growing up, I was always told, like, oh, think of all of the technological changes that our grandparents went through. You know, they went from literally riding around on horses, using ox to pull plows, to automation, vehicles, flight, planes, satellites. We are going to experience the same thing, but in reverse, right? We're going to experience a decline of our technological abilities on a similar level. Walk out onto the street, walk out into the main drag of your town or of your city and see all the cars go by, right? It's not going to be too much longer and all of those cars will be gone. Because they have to be. Because it will be completely unaffordable to drive one. And there are other impacts, right? You walk down the street, they have lights on, right? I'm looking at one right now, there's a light on. That's going to stop. The device that I'm talking to you right now on, will I be able to afford? Will you be able to afford to power it? We will experience a regression. We will experience a great regression. The agricultural sector, the sector we rely on to feed us, will not be able to produce food. The quote-unquote free market principles of neoliberal capitalism will deprioritize the creation of food. Food prices will rise. We will get less food from places that are not local. The variety of our food will diminish. Many places in the world, many, including places in Canada and the United States, will experience starvation. It will happen. These are the things that we are going to witness in our lifetimes. And it's unavoidable. There's no avoiding it. And during the mass hysteria this will bring to cultures that refuse to centralize their economic planning, like the United States, you're going to see market rushes, you're going to see resource hoarding, and you're going to see breakouts of continued civil war. Because the American culture has completely turned against itself. No one trusts anyone. The only people that people don't even know their neighbors. Do you know your neighbors? Do you know your neighbors? Be very honest with yourself right now. Do you know your neighbors? What are their names? If you can't tell me who your neighbors' names are, you don't have any idea who they are. And when these issues begin to strike your home, you will be torn apart from them. Because you have no idea who they are and they have no idea who you are, even though you live next door. Bake them cookies. Get to know them. Air these issues. They are scared. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. You do need to be the centralizing, organizing force now. Because there isn't anybody actually doing it. We're going to discover pretty quickly why people actually went to church, right? It wasn't to talk about a wizard who was coming back at any moment. It was so that they could get to know other like-minded people, so that they could live in a community that would support them during periods like this. Go to church. Find community, build community. Times are not going to get easier. They are not going to get better. In the best case scenario now for America is a Biden win, which guarantees complete climate devastation, whether or not we like it. And I don't actually believe that anyone could actually help America at this point. You say that the problem is decades old. I think the problem is built into capitalism. I think it is centuries old. To deal with the problems that we are going to face, you need to have a centralized economy. You need it. If you do not have the institutions required for the type of planning that we are talking about, you will be wiped away. The forces of the universe will not tolerate your ill-prepared society. Just take a look at the COVID crisis. The reason the Americans fumbled the ball so badly is that they don't even have the institutions to deal with this crisis. They rely on individuals to make the right decisions instead of institutions to have systems that work automatically to face these crises. Even worse than that in America, they don't even have educators who know, in theory, how to build a centralized economy. This is going to be a generation. It's going to take an entire generation of people to begin to realize that they need a centralized economy, that must happen. In short, America needs to go to war with climate change. But that means going to war with the very people who hold the power currently. I'm out of time. I think my closing statement really simply is this: do not bullshit yourself. You are the one that has the power to do anything, to do any of this, to fight any of this. No one else does. The fact that you're talking to me about it tells me that you have the spirit and the energy within you to push back against this, even if it's to gather your shit and leave. Dark days ahead. It will be easier. It will be easier if you look it in the face and you say, "Wash over me." Good luck.